All right, so welcome everyone. This is going to be our first ever TSI prep in Algebra 2. We're going to be working with quantitative reasoning here. So how we're going to do this is in parts. So this is going to be the first video where we're going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. So for the first three problems, we're going to determine if the operation used for two integers will result in a positive or negative integer. So basically what that means is that we look at the signs, and then based on the operation used, will that give us a positive or negative number? So what I have here is a little cheat sheet that I made to help us determine if the operation used for two integers will result in a positive or a negative number. Well, we know that whenever you add a positive plus a positive, the answer is going to be positive. When you have a positive times a positive, that's positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So some things to take away from this part of the cheat sheet is that if the signs are the same, the answer is going to be positive, right? So positive times a positive. These two signs are the same. They're being multiplied. Therefore, you're going to get a positive answer. Same thing over here. A negative times a negative. Those two signs are the same. So a negative times a negative is a positive, okay? But if we look over here, the signs are different. Positive times a negative is a negative. Negative times a positive is a negative. So if the signs are different and you're multiplying, the answer will be negative. Now let's take a look at this part. We're dealing with division this time. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. And lastly, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So whenever you're dividing and you have, the same signs, the answer is going to be positive. So we can look at the first and the last rules here. Positive divided by positive, they're the same, therefore it's positive. Negative divided by a negative, they're the same, so you're going to get a positive. Here we have different signs, so positive divided by negative is a negative, and negative divided by positive is a negative, all right? Okay, so let's take a look at these two rules. We have two more to go. More positives than negatives. So whenever you're adding, right, and you have more positives than the negatives, the answer is going to be positive. If we look over here, we all know that a positive and a negative will cancel each other out, right? So this positive and negative, as they get added together, they will both go away. And same thing with this pair. This positive and negative will cancel each other out as well. So we're left with this positive, right? It's not paired with another negative. It's the only positive in this situation. So again, if we have more positives than negatives, then our answer is positive. And this example just shows us why. If we have more negatives than positives, right, the answer is going to be a negative. Remember, a positive and a negative will cancel each other out. So this pair will go away and this pair will go away. And we're left with this negative, all right? So hopefully this little cheat sheet makes sense because we're going to be using this to answer the first three questions of our notes, all right? So let's take a look at number one. We have 1,200 divided by 40. So basically we have a positive divided by a positive. The answer is going to be positive. And that's all what we're going to be doing for the first three problems. Number two, 7 times this negative number. So we have a positive times a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. Number three, we have negative 6,355 plus this huge positive number, right? So we can see that there are more positives than negatives. So more positives than negatives. So we're going to have a positive answer. Okay? Also, when you have a negative number that is to the left of the plus sign, you can rewrite this as this number minus 6,355. Something to note when we're going to be doing these problems here. All right? Okay, let's take a look at number 4. We're being asked to simplify for numbers 4 to 9, and this is where we are going to compute. Okay, so let's take a look at number 4. We have -3 plus 10. Okay, so just like I said about this example, we can write our answer as 10 minus 3. Okay, so if you have a negative number plus a number, you can basically rewrite it as 10 minus 3, and we all know that that's just going to be 7. Number 5, -120 divided by -12. So we have a negative divided by a negative, so the answer is going to be a positive, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to divide. I'm going to write my 12 here, draw a division sign, and then write 120 underneath that. This is basically where we're going to be using long division, so hopefully you remember long division back in like elementary school or maybe middle school. So what we're going to do is, figure out how many times does 12 go into 120, or if you want to work with smaller numbers, right? We can basically say, how many times does 12 go into 12? Well, we all know that 12 goes into 12 one time. Okay, so I'll write my 1 up top, and then I do 12 times 1, and that's 12, right? But first, I need to write a minus sign before I write 12. Okay, so now we did ignore the 0 over here, so I can go ahead and just say 12 minus 12. That's 0. So that is 0. And then I'm going to drop down that 0 that we covered up and ask ourselves, okay, how many times does 12 go into 0? Well, that's just going to be 0. And now I do 12 times 0, and that's 0. Right? So it's going to be minus 0. So 0 minus 0 is 0, and that is my remainder. So now I can go ahead and say that we have a 10. Our answer is positive 10. Number 6, we have 8 times 12. Okay, so we're multiplying this time, and how I'm going to do this is I always like to write the number with the most digits up top. So I write 12 first, right? There are 2 digits in 12. And then I'm going to write the multiplication sign and write the number with the least number of digits. So that will be 8. So we have 12 times 8, and how we're going to do this is we look at the 8, and then we're going to multiply that by 2. So 8 times 2 is 16, right? So I'm just writing 6, and then the 1 in 16 goes right here, okay? Now it goes 8 times 1. 8 times 1 is 8, right? But since we carried the 1, we add the 1. So 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So the answer is 96. And remember, a positive times a positive is going to give you a positive answer. So the answer is going to be positive 96. Number 7, negative 9 minus 1. Okay, if you want to think of this as negative 9 plus negative 1, that's the same thing, right? So we have 9 negatives, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 negatives. And then we have one more negative. So we're just going to add another negative there. So how many negatives do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 negatives. So the answer is negative 10. Okay, so number 8, negative 11 times negative 18. So hopefully remember that negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, so I can go ahead and write 11 times 18. So we have 8 times 1, that's 8. And then we have 8 times 1, which is 8 again. And now we're going to move on to this 1 here. But before we do that, we need to make sure that we add a 0 because we're moving on to a different number. Okay, so we have 1 times 1, that's 1. And then we have 1 times 1, that's 1 again. Then we add these two numbers, and we're going to add straight down, okay? So 8 plus 0 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. And then we have 0 plus 1, and that's 1. So the answer is positive 198. Number 9, we have 720 divided by negative 8. So we have a positive divided by a negative, right? So our answer is going to be negative. So what we're going to do is, since the number that's after the division sign, we need to make sure that it's going to go outside of the division symbol, right? So 8 goes outside. Here's my division symbol. And we're going to put 720 underneath that, okay? So our goal here is to figure out how many times does 8 go into 720. Well, I like to work with smaller numbers, right? So let's just cover up this 0 and figure out, okay, how many times does 8 go into 72? Well, 8 goes into 72 9 times. All right, so 8 times 9 is 72. But before we write anything, we need to put a subtraction symbol there and then write 72. Okay, so 72 minus 72. I'm not doing 720 minus 72. I'm only working with the 72, yes. So 72 minus 72 is 0. Then we're going to drop down the 0 there. Okay, and then figure out how many times does 8 go into 0? Well, 8 goes into 0 0 times. Okay, so 8 times 0 is 0. So minus 0, 0 minus 0 is 0. So the answer is not 90, it's negative 90. Okay? All right, so thank y'all for watching the first part of today's notes. You might be wondering, and this is a fair question to ask because I think I owe y'all an explanation, why are we doing this when we can use a graphing calculator or a calculator in general? And that is a fair point, right? Well, the reason why we're doing this is because the TSI is sometimes calculator or non-calculator, right? So we can't use a calculator on everything. So that's why we're doing this. We're trying to, understand the basic rules of arithmetic and knowing how to do arithmetic. So hopefully our notes for today is helpful. If not, there's plenty of practice online, especially the IXLs that I'm going to give you. So please, please, please make sure you take advantage of that and get better at the arithmetic that we need in our lives. All right, see you in the next video.